control of budget or the parliament?
No, what happens is this. You see, Article 206 of our Constitution says there shall be one account called the consolidated account, and all revenue of government must enter it. A and B give the exceptions. Exception 1, that if you have a housing fund, you have a petroleum development fund, which we contribute to when we buy petrol. That is a fund that can be an individual account, right, at the central bank. And then B, if a corporation, for example, KPLC makes money, they can keep what is called appropriations in aid, right? If a ministry for some reason does something that makes some money, right, they can keep it to defray further expenses in their budget. That's appropriations in aid, right? Those are the two exceptions that you do not take any other money to consolidated fund. So consolidated fund receives in full and in part, in full, right? Loans, etc., etc., etc. That was mimicked in Section 57 of the Public Finance Management Act. All right? So it was taken and copy-pasted in Section 57 of the Public Finance Management Act of 2012. It was put as it is in Article 206, exactly that. The only exceptions are A, a fund created by Parliament, and B, appropriations in aid, if there is a profit. Now, in 2014 March, Duale, as majority leader, with John Bundy seconding an amendment to Article 57 of the Public Finance Management Act, added two clauses. After A, which says pay to consolidated fund, which was the way it was in Article 50, and B, to a public fund created by Parliament, they added C and D. C and D, right, has everything to do with loans. Disbursed directly to suppliers where the loan is a government-to-government loan and is raised for the purpose of financing goods and services provided by a supplier outside Kenya. D, in the case of an external loan or an external government security, applied in part to pay at closing, and I really want you to hear these details, pre-negotiated expenses associated solely and exhaustively with the borrowing, including but not limited to fees, commissions, expenses of lenders, financial arrangers, managers, book runners, fiscal agents, trustees, paying agents, exchange and information agents, syndicated agents, counsel, clearing systems, list is out everywhere else. Shit. So who has access to this? Yes, that's what happened. So the Auditor General can't audit that money. It's not in her mandate. It's not in the consolidated fund. The controller of budget, who approves every expenditure out of that budget, out of consolidated fund, is not there to approve anything because she doesn't cite it. She doesn't cite it. So they created a balloon. So for example, the Eurobond, this was just done before Eurobond, to show you the heist. The Eurobond was 2 billion from JP Morgan Chase, right? 1 billion we traced. Government, on our insistence, at the time, Rotich gave us details when we queried. And that money, we saw a swift transfer, right? But what happened? In JP Morgan Chase, the Auditor General, the Accountant General, called Bernard Ndungu, and his deputy opened an account, right, called the Sovereign Wealth Fund Kenya in JP Morgan Chase. So all the monies that were gotten from so-called emerging markets for the bond went to that account. The signatories were the two of them, all right? And they were dispersing from there. Instead of them dispersing instructions to central bank consolidated account, they were dispersing from New York. So they sent money to a syndicated loan, Barclays Bank, that Kibaki had taken, $650 million. They dispersed $350 million to the central bank exchequer account that we're talking about, consolidated fund. Then another 1 billion, they could not show us where it went. They redacted the SWIFT, so we don't know. It was a heist. It never came to Kenya. In fact, we traced it to Qatar, where they opened another sovereign wealth account, Kenya. They opened accounts all over the world. And that's what's been going on here. So they decide with a phone call what you're to do with money that has been received as loans. I want it in my pocket, I want it in my stomach, I want it to see where. That's what has happened. And there's no accountability. The only time the controller of budget sees this, or the auditor general sees this, is at the point where we are paying those debts. And that's what we started querying with them. Why are you approving debts, payments, that you cannot see where they came in, what they went to? But you're approving from our taxes, from the consolidated account, payment of these debts. What is it for? And you have seen ever since we started raising this, they're coming out and saying, oh, we didn't know, oh, there's this discrepancy, oh, there's that discrepancy. Just the other day, the Auditor General came out and said they have discovered 55 billion shillings has gone out in paying arrangement fees for loans that had never been taken. 55 billion shillings in the 10 years that we're talking about. I have a figure of 180 billion shillings out to arrangement fees. Arrangement fees are like this. You can see there the provision was given. The arrangement fees are simply this. The arrangement fees are simply this. Money that if you are sourcing a loan, right, you must give us a 1%, 2% of the value of the loan, right? And that's what happened. That is exactly what happened. Now, I am prepared, Amarix, to come back on two issues. This, so we show you systematically the heist year on year.
Wanjigi, just to expound on, and this is, he can do it on this space or even the next space that we can have, is how there is no accountability for account C and D. Well, I might have an understanding of this, but what do the young Kenyans? Because right now, I can comfortably tell you, we are on our own Americs. You can attribute to that. It's the effort of you and every other person who is conscious in Kenya, who understands that we are in trenches, that is pulling for this. The aspect of why there is no accountability for C and D, and the aspect of why all this stealing is happening. I wish Wanjigi could just put it in the layman's language. I know it gets too much into
I'll be very simple. Our constitution said we have one account in this country, not 10, not 2, one account. All monies go there, and it gave the exception. If you create a housing fund out of parliament, it can go there and you monitor it. So it gave exceptions, only exceptions, A and B. And why they did that is so that you can manage from one account various things. For example, that is what anchors the budget. So every time you are going to remove money from the taxes that are collected in that account, the controller of budget has to approve it depending on a vote head of parliament. That means parliament has approved an expenditure for salaries for Ministry of Transport. There is a vote head. It's given a number, so you remove it. Parliament has approved in the budget the expenditure for a road, right? Recarpeting of a particular road or a borehole somewhere. It has a vote head. So there's a proper accountability. Even loans, when they enter that account, it is for this purpose. So the controller of budget approves its expenditure, and the Auditor General comes and audits whether that has been done according to the law. These guys decided that that constitution does not work for them because of all those controls. And they decided they are going to operate outside of it because the intention was to take money that is not going to the budget, to take money that is not for you and I and Wanjiko and Mura. It is for themselves. So they created a balloon where our taxes, right, are paying for loans that never came to us, that they ate, that they swallowed, and it's to the tune of $50 billion. This is what they are protecting up until today. This is the mess that is taking 70% of all the taxes that we are paying to the government. This is why we have a problem. And unless we're able to cut off that illegal debt, which is illegal to us, unless we're able to cut off that illegal debt, I can assure you it is misery for the next 60 years. We have to cut it off now. We cut it off now, we are free. And just to give you an example, this year, we are paying 1.9 trillion to that debt, which was a heist. a major. I cannot tell you that that cost is only 145 billion shillings a year. And no, there's no other malfeasance. It's not a bloated government or bloated counties or this or that, right? Or theft of a little furniture here and there or somebody doing this. That is nothing. 1.9, when you see debt payments, it is all a heist. Of that 1.9, 1.1 trillion is interest. There's no bigger expenditure from our taxes. Next year, it's going to be 2.1 trillion. Unless we cut that snake, we are in trouble here. And the only way we can force them is by not contributing to it, is by saying we are not going to pay any more tax and we are going to revolt. And they come to a grinding halt because then they are forced to look at that thing and we will force them to do it. And I can tell you, once we do that, this is over. All of them are done. They all exit our lives and we'll have a life of greatness that we can look forward to. But we have to cut off this snake. And it has very many players. It has international players, big players that have been doing this all over the world, big players that are doing it in other African countries. Zambia has been part of this. Mozambique, part of this. Malaysia, part of it. It's big players supported by big governments. But we have to cut off the snake ourselves. We have slave masters here as leaders. They have made sure that we have become slaves to all these entities that are reaping our sweat. This is where we say no more. And this is what it's about. No other issue. We sort this out, we free Kenyans.
Thank you very much. Let me allow you to rest.
Thank you.
In our next space, you'll come with specifics.
Yes. Yes.
Francis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Francis. Thank you very much, Jimi. Francis. You've been in my DM saying
Jimi,
there's something you want to say.
Jimi,